It is conference championship weekend, and we are here on Barely Bowl Eligible to get you ready for everything you need to know for maybe the best weekend in college football. We'll talk about it.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
We are Barely Bowl Eligible here on KC Sports Network. Always draft season here. You guys know the vibe. If you guys are tuned into the channel, appreciate you joining us live. And appreciate you watching after the fact. If you weren't able to catch us live at noon Central, we still appreciate it. Matt, as always, Matt Lane joining me. How are you doing? We've hit conference championship weekend, and it's a really good weekend of football.
Hey, listen, we're barely bowl eligible, just like the James Madison Dukes. Got to squeak on in there and be bowl eligible despite the terrible rules. How about that? And this is beyond just James Madison, but how about the fact that James Madison's not allowed to earn their way into a bowl game? Right. But if everybody else is bad enough, they'll let them in the bowl game. What are we doing? How is that a loophole for them to get into a bowl game? If they went undefeated, they wouldn't get to play in a bowl game. But because not enough teams finished with a winning record, they're now allowed to be in a bowl game regardless. It's absolutely silly. So I'm glad the Dukes are getting into a bowl, though, and Jacksonville State and a couple other teams.
Yep.
We got a little bit before we talk about bowls. So let's get into this conference championship game. Their weekend, I guess we can skip over kind of like the one big thing. The one big thing is how the heck is this playoff going to play out? And we got, 5 Power 5 conference championship games. That's how math works.
Yep.
Every single one of them impacts the playoffs, right? There's not a single game that has no implication on the playoff besides, unfortunately, the Big 12 championship game might be the one that has no effect on the playoff. And that's just unfortunate. That's not maybe the way it should be in the rankings right now, but every single other game has significant playoff implications.
Yes, very much so, especially, the one that's going to happen on Friday. That's the big one, a huge one that is, I think this one's winning you're in. I think whichever team wins this is into the playoffs. I think that's almost certain. It would have to take a lot of chaos, I think, to knock down either one of these two teams. But if you look at just the other games going on too, Louisville, Florida State's an interesting one. I think Michigan, Iowa is one that I think everyone kind of knows the outcome of and knows what's going to happen. We'll touch on that one for a little bit, but Georgia, Alabama, big one as well. Lots of playoff implications, and I've been chatting with our friend Zach Eisen about what we think the committee will do. Now, what I want to happen versus what I think the committee will do are two different things, right? Like if I am giving the resumes of all of these schools, say that Washington wins and Florida State wins and Bama win, right? If all those teams win, Florida State's probably going to be in. I think the committee puts Florida State in. I know Florida State isn't the best team, but I think that's probably what the committee does. Do I necessarily agree with it? No, but I think that's what the committee would do.
I mean, I think it's terrible, but I'm with you. You gotta honor conference championships, right?
Correct.
You have to do it. They're there for a reason. So we unfortunately have to honor it. You can't have a Power 5 team go undefeated, win their conference title versus a ranked team, and then get left out, even if they are going to go and be, the sacrificial lamb to Georgia or Michigan or whoever ends up being number one. It's unfortunate that we know we're going to get an uncompetitive game after that if you put them there, but I don't see a way around it. And the thing that bothers me is the playoff committee speaks out of both sides of their mouth. On one hand, about Florida State, they say, well, they're undefeated. You got to keep them in there, which is entirely saying, hey, look at the resume. We have to. And then when it comes to Oregon right behind them, it has nothing to do with the resume because their resume's buns. But yet they've been fifth. They've been that first one-loss team the whole time, despite having a bad resume. And for Oregon, it becomes, well, the eye test. Look at the eye test. They're good on the eye test. How can we use resume for one team, eye test for another? Yeah. And then just I just don't like that aspect of it. Just sit there and say, hey, your resume is what matters. And if that's the case, we should have the Oregon conversation, but we don't need to do that right here. It's Florida State wins, they're in. I think the winner of Oregon, Washington probably gets in. I think there's a potential path to where Oregon wins, and you at least have to have a conversation about them as being the fourth seed with Texas, potentially with maybe Georgia loses and Alabama and Georgia and Oregon have to have this conversation, right? Like, I think there's some conversations if Oregon wins in a non-convincing fashion. If it's like a one-score win, just like Washington had against them, then it's like, okay, what do we do here? So Washington wins and Oregon wins, decidedly, then like they're going to be in for sure.
There's a lot of scenarios that can play out, but as we talk about all the time on this podcast, like all of this stuff will play out. Like it'll all work itself out. And
now it's starting to get convoluted though. Like we at the point of it works itself out. Like you got a team that is very deserving from resume or the eye test or just overall like how good they are. It's going to be left out. It's a good year. I think it's a good year to be like, hey, next year we're going to 12 teams. Maybe this weekend loses some pizzazz in that case because like all of these teams, sans Louisville, is maybe the only team in Iowa are the only teams playing for an actual spot if you're going to 12 teams, I think, right? But
yeah.
I mean, outside of that, like you get all these teams that are deserving in. So I don't know. It'll be interesting next year to see how this feels because this is one of the best conference championship weekends I think we've had since the playoff came around.
Yeah, it would have to be. And Maddie, to your point, and kind of what I was talking about is like the committee has shown in years past when making this 14 playoff that conference championships matter. That's the whole thing about the playoff is like, why do conference championships even exist if they're not going to matter when it comes to a playoff to like even to 12 teams? These conference championships exist for as another notch on the resume, right? So these games do matter, and I think that's really what's really important about it. But Maddie, should we start with the big one? Should we start with the one coming down on Friday night as Oregon, number 5 Oregon, technically the road team on this game, but it is taking place in Las Vegas, the last ever Pac-12 championship. The Pac-12 as we know it championship, I should say. This game's going to be on ABC tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's number 5 Oregon at number 3 Washington. Oregon right now, I believe, favored by 9 points. Let me double check that line here because there has been some movement recently. Yes, 9 points on that line coming down towards Washington in that regard. But Matthew, your thoughts?
Yeah, these two teams played a month and a half ago. Washington won a 1-score game in which Oregon got aggressive, went for a couple fourth downs that led to 0 points. And I don't want to say lost in the game, but they went for them and chance to win the game. It didn't work out. So Washington wins a close one in Seattle. I understand Oregon has looked better since then. They've been favored, but man, essentially this same Washington team has won the last 2 meetings against this same Oregon team. Like, yeah, a couple guys have left or been added to the roster since, but this Washington team has beat this Oregon team twice. I think Oregon has played like a better football team since then, but once these two teams go on the field, I don't know how much of that matters. The matchups between these two teams just seem to be kind of generally playing out the same way. Both defenses struggle to stop the opposing offense. I anticipate seeing that again. And it's about whatever team can kind of step up and make these big stops. Oregon's defense looks a little bit more primed to do it, but I mean, you get good Michael Penix again, like the way he was playing early in the season, they start connecting on those deep balls for Washington, and it gets really difficult to slow them down with all those weapons. So I'm really excited to see this game. I think there should be a lot of fireworks going on in it.
One thing for me that I've always latched on with Washington is they necessarily haven't won pretty. Like, that doesn't matter anymore, right? Like, in the BCS, it did matter, but it doesn't matter anymore. Their wins are wins. They're still an undefeated team. I know a lot of people have latched on to, well, they played these teams close. I think that benefits them a lot because they know how to win close games. At least that's a spin zone I'm telling myself, Matthew, about this Washington team. I've heard this brought up on several different places. Do you think Michael Penix is hurt?
I mean, I don't know if it's hurt or if it's just the weather's getting a little crappier. Yeah. And it's a team that lives and dies by throwing deep go balls. And they lost Jalen McMillan, who was their primary slot receiver. He's one of their 3 guys that, had been part of that. And then I think Jalen Polk had been banged up a little bit. Their offensive line had been banged up. Like, it seems like a team that went through quite a few injury bugs, and just some of the timing and a lot of their offense seemed to be very much like detailed, very, very nuanced. Everything had to happen on time, and they just kind of hit a wall. So maybe he is injured and that's slowed him down. Like, I think he got the crap beat out of him against Oregon in that last matchup, and it's kind of been since then. But I think it's more of just, they're a team that plays a style of game that has a very small margin for error. And they've just been hitting all those errors since that game, essentially.
Yeah, and they've had some difficulty keeping their other wide receivers outside of Roma Dunze on the field in terms of injuries. So they've had some injuries all over the place for Washington. And I do think when looking at Oregon, Oregon is the more complete team. Oregon's defense is good. Like Oregon might could be an early favorite to win the Big Ten next year. Truthfully, with just how they stack up, because I think their style of football stacks up good against Big Ten football, which probably stacks up good in the college football playoff if they are to make it there. And I think that defense travels, the old saying goes, and I think Oregon has been playing better. They have clearly the momentum coming into this game, which I do think this game's going to be a lot closer than 9 points, though, Maddie. That 9 point spread is one thing that I don't know. I know that we haven't seen the Washington that we saw earlier in the year, even against Oregon, and the Michael Penix even against Oregon. Like that was probably the last time that they played to maybe their ceiling was against Oregon. I know we haven't seen that in a while, but I think that this game is still. I think this game's still close.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's closer. The way these two teams have played each other makes it really hard for me to believe that this is going to be some kind of Oregon blowout where they're just going to go out there and, just run them down despite kind of what the line is saying, what a lot of people seem to believe. But on the flip side, they really have been playing better. So we'll see. We'll have to see it really does come down to which defense makes a couple stops. And the thing is, Washington plays, I said, a type of offense that's got very small margins for error. But when it's clicking, it's unstoppable. It is legitimately unstoppable to defend what they do when it's all clicking. Oregon, on the other hand, is a lot safer. It's a lot of short passes. It's the run game a little bit. Like they play a lot safer. It's just they also just execute so well. So it almost feels like it's easier to stop Washington, but a singular stop on any down seems to impact Oregon a little bit more. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I did want to say Tej Johnson is a wide receiver for Oregon. Since that Washington, he's their second wide receiver. Most people know Troy Franklin. We've talked about him this year, right? And we know about a lot of guys in this game. Tej Johnson's a guy I got my eye on, though, because since that Washington game, he's either had a touchdown or over 100 yards in all but one game for Oregon. Like he's really come on since that Washington game, given Bo Nix a second, reliable player to throw the football to. And I think you could be primed, if Washington's going to go out of their way to make sure there's a bracket on Troy Franklin or always help over the top, Johnson could have another big game here and really help that offense get going. So big game for Tej Johnson. And then you have everything else for the Oregon offense working. It could be kind of difficult to see Washington come up with those stops.
I agree. I do agree because Washington's defense isn't the best one in the country when it comes to their coverage and stuff like that. Yeah, Chiefs fans are probably very familiar with both of these wide receiver rooms. Truthfully, when it comes to Troy Franklin, obviously a hot name in Chiefs Kingdom right now. Roma Dunze is a guy who's probably going to go a little bit earlier. Jalen Polk, who's the other Jalen I'm missing? McMillan for Washington as well. So listen, there's going to be some good wide receivers. If you love to watch good wide receiver play, watch this game. Maddie, last thing before we pick this.
Okay.
Heisman conversation.
Oh.
Does Bo Nix need an insane game? I know he's got the stats right. I know if you look at his numbers, he leads everything in statistics. But I heard this brought up. I think it was on the Cover 3 podcast. They brought it up about he doesn't have a Heisman moment. Yeah. You think that matters?
Okay, so I think go one of two ways. Having a quote unquote Heisman moment in this game and having a game winning play or drive, I think really helps him overcome the stat differential between him and Daniels. Jaden Daniels there at LSU. On the other hand, if they just come out here and dog walk Washington and blow them out, and Bo Nix has a good game, you're going to pad stats. Maybe you missed the moment, but everyone's going to be watching you Friday night throw for 5 more touchdowns, another 300 yards. Doesn't matter if it wasn't a game winner at that point. It's I think Bo Nix controls the Heisman, in my opinion. If he has a good game or that game-winning drive play, he wins the Heisman. If he doesn't, if it's just a pedestrian performance and, they hang on to win a close one or lose, I think it goes to Daniels.
Daniels doesn't have a game to play in.
Yeah,
he's Daniels doesn't have another game. So I don't know if you saw that LSU put out a billboard in Las Vegas for Jaden Daniels for Heisman. They're doing whatever they can to get the Heisman talk. But Maddie, 9-point favorites the Oregon Ducks are. What are you taking in this game?
My head says Oregon. My heart, with my Washington Huskies shirt on, says go Huskies. The line's too big for what we've seen from these two teams when they play each other. Give me the Huskies to cover. I don't know if I think they'll win. I think Oregon is just a more complete team at this point in time, but that line's too big. So give me Washington.
Yeah, I'm going to take Washington as well. Underdog has covered the spread in 7 of Washington's last 8 games. That just tells you that Washington's played close games because they've been favored. Well, they weren't favored against Oregon State, right? They were on the road against Oregon State and they were dogs.
They were.
So they did cover that one. 9 points, I agree, Matty. Too big of a line. I think this game's going to be close. And truthfully, I already said it. I think a close game benefits Washington. But I wouldn't. I don't think I don't think they win by 2 scores.
I think that close game does benefit Washington. Like you start to get that monkeys on your back. You're like, okay, we have lost twice in a row to this team. We saw what happened last time. Like if that game's close in the fourth quarter, that's when you start to see Oregon maybe clinch up a little bit because they haven't been in a lot of those spots this year. And the last time they got away from Texas Tech when that happened, and they lost to Washington when that happened. So yeah, I don't think Oregon wants a close game into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Let's go ahead and move on to the noon game. An 11 a.m. kickoff, noon Eastern.
Saturday. We are off the Friday. We are to Saturday. Just
not noon Friday. If it was noon Friday, that'd be going on right now when we're recording this podcast. Huh? We would be in a real big pickle right now. Thank you for the clarification. This is in Arlington, Texas. This game is also on ABC. Number 18, Oklahoma State takes on number 7, Texas. Texas favored by 15.5 points in this game. Maddie, thoughts on this matchup?
Does Oklahoma State have a chance? Do you think Oklahoma State has a chance?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's where I come to. What does Oklahoma State do good right now? They run with Ollie Gordon. Guess what's really hard to run against when you're going against a defensive line that has like 6 guys that are going to go play in the NFL. Half of them are going to be, day top 100, top 50 type picks. Like the one thing Oklahoma State does good is the one thing that Texas is just like inherently stops because of who they have. Texas has such a different caliber of player than anybody else in the Big 12, Oklahoma included. Oklahoma just had, rivalry game and they out-coached Texas or out-executed them for the day. There's such a talent gap between Texas and anybody else in the Big 12. And so I have a really hard time seeing Oklahoma State for 60 minutes being able to do enough to keep Texas down. The last couple times we've seen Texas play, they look like they've been really clicking. They just blew out Texas Tech. And, I don't think Tech had quit. That wasn't Texas Tech who wasn't trying hard. They just ran into a team that had vastly better talent. I think this game kind of goes the same way. Texas also, sneaky point, they might need style points. This is a team, they're number 7. They have to jump some teams. Even if they win, they have to jump teams to get into the playoff. They need another 50-point win. And that's a statement. They can't revenge their loss against Oklahoma, but what they can do is beat a team that beat Oklahoma by 50 and hope that matters, right? So that's the biggest intrigue to me is how much does Texas try to pour it on in this game to get the style points?
It's interesting too because I do think that Texas-Oklahoma probably would have been a bigger draw in terms of this game, especially with the storyline of Texas getting to avenge their one loss this season to Oklahoma, and the storyline too of just those two teams leaving the Big 12 and playing in the championship game would be quite funny. But Maddie, you mentioned it. The big thing, the way that Oklahoma State has kind of buttered their bread, so to speak, running the football with Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon, finalist for the Doak Walker, him and Cody Schrader. I'm forgetting the
Big
third.
Schrade.
Big Schrade. I mean, hey, just go ahead and give it to him now. I think it's going to be very tough sledding for the Oklahoma State offense to get anything going against a front with, as you said it, guys who are going to be playing on Sundays. Just looking at the over/under for this game, it's at 55 right now. So, I mean, we anticipate there to be some scoring in this game. I do think that you're right. Texas does need some style points, especially if they are going to try to make it into the college football. I think they've got a very tough road to hoe when it comes to college football play. If they're going to need a lot of help, but 15.5 points for Texas, Maddie. We've talked about Texas a decent amount on the podcast. I feel like this year. Anyone that we haven't really talked about player wise on Texas that you're keeping an eye on, or is it
No.
the same? I was gonna say it seems like it's the same customers.
We've talked about them so much. Pick a defensive lineman, he's going to the NFL. Pick a guy catching passes, he's going to the NFL. I don't think there's a particular player matchup here in this game that I'm intrigued by. It's just a matter of like, who steps up. And this is more of like a watching for. I would like to see Texas make the playoff because I think Texas at their best is one of the best 4 teams. So I want to see them come out and beat Oklahoma State down to give themselves like a fighting chance at that 4 spot for this playoff. So come out, look really good, get all the weapons going, and have your D-line dominate this game. That's kind of what I want to see. The most fun player, I guess, is probably Tavondre Sweat, the 365-pound monster in the middle of Texas's D-line. Like, you want a player that can control everything about this game, have him blow up a couple early Ollie Gordon runs and put all that pressure onto the Alan Bowman-led Cowboys passing attack and see what happens.
Yeah, 15.5 point spread, as I mentioned earlier. Underdog has covered the spread in each of the last 6 games between Oklahoma State and Texas. I think I heard a stat that Oklahoma State versus Texas. They haven't played this year, but they're like 9-2 or 9-3 against Texas. And like
Oklahoma State,
they've got their number.
Gundy's been beating them. But Sark hasn't been there for all of them. I don't know what the record is for Sark or anything like that. I'm gonna take Texas. I think they're too much talent, too much to play for. Give me Texas. And Oklahoma State, all they get out of winning this is like, we send you to the SEC with a loss, but like they already have the Oklahoma game to hang with that. Like, right. Yeah, it would be cool to do it twice, but if you go down 21-0 to a clearly more talented team, like how much fight back do you still have left if you're in the shoes of Oklahoma State? So I'm gonna take Texas laying a big number.
Wow. I was just looking at the page, the Winsipedia page for Oklahoma State and Texas. Oklahoma State kind of owns them in the last few years when looking at it. But yeah, I do think I stayed away from this one. Maddie, little peek behind the curtain. I placed some of my college football bets for this weekend already today.
Let's go.
When I was in the office. I stayed away from this one. So I'm not putting any money on this one because could I see Texas going out there hanging a 50 burg on Oklahoma State for some style points to go out with a little bit of a bang? Absolutely. I could totally see that. That seems like something that Texas could do. Could I also see them getting up early in the first half and then just playing dead in the second half? Yes, because that's what they've done all year. So it's a little bit of that. I think I'm going to take Oklahoma State plus a 15.5, just because that number's really big when it comes to that game. But Maddie, I think this is the game that we might spend the most time on this game looking at.
This is the final SEC on CBS game.
I know, dude. That's kind of crazy. That is the last time that CBS is going to do what? The Big Ten now? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and like Iowa, Minnesota just doesn't quite hit the same
as Ole Miss, LSU.
I mean, just pick anybody, right? But yeah, right. But like it just doesn't hit the same. Like you have, I guess we'll see how the Big Ten and everything handles. But yeah, there's just the final SEC on CBS game.
It's a good note. This game it's also too in the SEC prime slot, the afternoon prime time. With the 3 p.m. kickoff, number 1 Georgia versus number 8 Alabama in not the Georgia Dome, but it's in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome or whatever they're calling it this month. On CBS, as you mentioned, Maddie, thoughts on this one?
I think a lot of people ID'd like the Oregon-Washington game as like the big game of the weekend and stuff, and like the biggest one. Like I get it. I get why, because it is a kind of a play-in game. This one, to me, is my favorite game here. I'm just not ready to quit Alabama. Just not ready to quit it. I kind of had jokingly said it early in the year, but like it also became like a belief. Nick Saban loves this team. He likes coaching a team uphill. He likes pushing this team around. Like he likes it. It's hard for this team. He likes it. It's difficult for them. And if they keep winning games by 1 score, 2 scores, falling behind early, but keep winning, and they do that all the way to the playoff, the national championship, like I think he's going to be having the time of his life. And so I'm not ready to count out Alabama and just the way this season has gone. Georgia, I think, has clearly shown these past few weeks they are still should be considered the best team in all of college football. but it's Nick Saban as an underdog, as a dog against Georgia. Like, I don't know. That feels like a good spot to me to like kind of believe in Alabama and think that they might have a little something up their sleeve, whether it's an extra edge, whether it's a motivational factor, or just some scheme stuff picked out to slow down Georgia to get some open guys. I'm not ready to say this one's just a wash yet.
Do we believe, Matthew, that the winner of this game goes to the playoffs?
I do. But I've seen a lot of people push back that if Alabama wins, they are definitely in. And I just have a really hard time with the SEC champion, especially if it's Bama, beating the back-to-back college national football champions.
Haven't lost 2 years.
If Alabama beats Georgia, their only loss presumably is going to be to a Big 12 winning Texas team that is ranked at that point in the top 5. Probably. Like, yep. I just have a hard time seeing them keep out that team, nor do I think they should. The issue becomes if Washington and Florida State win and Texas win, like how does Bama jump over Texas? How do you get them in numbers wise? It's just, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it.
It's a tough, this situation is so hard when you look at just like if Alabama wins and if Florida State also wins.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do you get, this is where you get, this is the problem, is you have 4 teams, but 5 power conference championships. One of them is going to get left out. That's just how math works. And it probably won't be the SEC champion. I'll tell you that. They're probably not going to have a playoff without an SEC champion in it.
But they have the head-to-head loss to Texas. Like, can you put them in over Texas? Like, we got to get to Louisville needs to beat Florida State and save us some headaches. Okay, just get out of here. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, like you're in a pickle.
Louisville does need to play. Listen, they very well could. Florida State, little peek behind the little look ahead. They're only favored by 2 points in that game. Which I might sprinkle a little money line on Louisville. That's not the game we're talking about. So if Alabama wins, Maddie, does Georgia still make the playoff?
No, Georgia's out if Bama wins.
That is so crazy to me, though. But
how? Like, who would one-loss Georgia be in over though? Right? They're not going to be in over the Pac-12. Okay, they won't be in over Michigan. Spoiler: Michigan's beating Iowa. So they're not going to be in over Michigan. Are they going to be in over the Pac-12 champion? The way things are ranked right now. I don't think so. I think everyone's considering that a play-in game.
If Oregon wins, would you put Georgia in over Oregon?
This isn't a me thing. This is true. What are they going to do? They have loved Oregon from every step of the way. So I think that team is in no matter what. If Florida State wins, they're undefeated. I don't think you can put Georgia ahead of them. And then it becomes, you can't functionally put Georgia ahead of Alabama, who just beat them. Right. And if Alabama just beat them, can you put Alabama ahead or you can't put Alabama ahead of Texas because Texas beat Alabama. So Georgia goes to the back of the line, and it's unfortunate because they are one of the best 4 teams. But like, I don't see a way that Georgia still sneaks in because you would have to, without Texas losing. I guess Texas losing maybe gives you an option. If Texas and Florida State lose, things get real crazy. Then a lot of doors open up. Then a lot of doors do open up, huh? I don't know. It's about to be wild. They do. I guess that's your path, right? If you want that, you need Texas to lose and you need Florida State to lose, because then you open up the final 2 spots, the playoff, and Alabama beating them probably gets 1, and then it becomes, like maybe Georgia can fight Ohio State for that last spot, which they beat Ohio State for that spot.
Oh yeah, they beat Ohio State 10 times out of 10 for that spot. And that's how you get 2 SEC teams in the playoff.
Let's go.
That's how it works. This game, just outside of the playoff implications, is a wildly interesting one in terms of how these 2 teams match up. Because, again, Maddie, as you mentioned, like these 2 teams are playing a brand of football that they don't typically play. Like Georgia's kind of playing a different style of offense than, than what they have in years past. And they're just getting it done with Jalen Milroe chucking up prayers on 4th and 31.
Whoa, that was a dime.
Agree to disagree, but Jalen Murray's been playing well. Um, I this game is very. I think Georgia is the better team, and I don't know if that's
Yes.
necessarily a hot take. I think Georgia's the better team. Alabama might be the hotter team. I don't know. I think it all comes down to, Maddie, is it fair? Is it fair for me to say that this game comes down to how well Jalen Monroe plays?
Yeah, for sure. Here's the thing: Alabama has to play their A+ game to beat Georgia. But
Yeah.
Bama needs an A+ game to beat Georgia's B+ game, right? Georgia doesn't have to play perfect to win the vast majority of their games, this one included. But the thing is, if Bama plays their absolute best and Georgia plays their absolute best, this is like the one of the two teams in all of college football that can compete with Georgia if both teams play their best. It's them and Michigan, maybe Oregon. I don't know. There's just not a lot of teams, and this is one of them. I think people are sleeping on Alabama's defense versus Georgia's offense. This is going to be the best defense by far Georgia's played. And like, what happens when Georgia's run game can't get going, or if it can't? What happens if this Alabama pass rush does start to get some pressure on Carson Beck and he's having to play a little bit off schedule, stuff that we haven't necessarily seen them have to do consistently, especially to start? Like, so I think that's the part that goes the most under the radar. Is this Alabama defense is excellent, and Georgia hasn't really seen that. On the flip side, Alabama hasn't seen an offense quite as good as Georgia since the LSU game. And like, LSU was putting up points for a while. I mean, they locked it down later. So I don't know. I think Alabama's in a better situation to beat Georgia than most other teams. I think if you ask every Georgia player who the last tier, the team that they think has the best chance to beat them, I bet most of them say Alabama. I bet they don't think Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State. They're going to say Alabama. We know that every single year. So yeah, I think the game comes down to Milroe, specifically his legs. Mm-hmm. Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, their defenses are always usually really good. They usually do struggle against running quarterbacks. That's been one thing about their Achilles heel. It's been really struggling.
It's going to be an interesting one. It's a game. What I like about this slate, I know this is kind of a macro as we're looking kind of micro into this game, but the slate as a whole is like, you have good games, just like time slot after time slot after time slot. There's nothing like overlapping each other. We'll talk about some group of 5 championship games maybe here a little bit later. But Maddie, this spread is 5 points in favor of the Georgia Bulldogs, and Alabama has covered the spread in 5 of its last 6 games at neutral venues. What's your pick on this one?
Listen, I said it earlier. I've been riding the Alabama's going to win a bunch of games by 1 score all the way to the national championship. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with Bama. This doesn't make, this one is probably the most, outside of the realm of not possibility, but like the masses, I guess, because most people think Georgia's going to roll. Give me Bama. Give me Milroe continuing a good play. Give me Dallas Turner and Braswell finding success against Georgia's offensive line there off the edges. I think they're going to do it. I think Bama's going to come out and they're going to do what they need to do. They winning record versus Kirby in SEC title games. Let's see what happens.
I'm taking Georgia. I think Georgia's a better team. And I think that Georgia seems a little bit different, built different than in years past. And I think that they are legitimately the best team in the country. And they've shown it the past few weeks. So I'm going to take Georgia in this one. Not happily. I'm not going to happily take Georgia because that eliminates the chaos that we all want in the college football playoff. Like, Maddie, this is what's going to happen, though. That, like, Washington's going to win.
Okay.
Texas is going to win. Georgia will win. Michigan will win.
Boom, done. Oh,
Florida State will win.
Oh, yeah, the Texas is out. Unfortunate. Yeah. The Texas.
I'm just saying, what's going to happen is we're going to prepare ourselves for all this chaos. And then the 4 teams that are already in are going to win. Like, this is what's going to happen. She's like, well, that's
possible. But I mean, that makes it easy for the committee. Then nobody has to feel bad. I mean, Texas is going to feel bad, but then like you come back to the end of the day and like, yeah, Texas won't be able to argue. It'll be all undefeated teams over them. Like, you don't really get a leg to stand on if it's all undefeated teams in and you're not in. So like that is the most appeasing to everybody to not have any like, issues about them, have no conflict.
All right. 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern.
Michigan. I pick Michigan.
I pick Michigan as well. But Michigan plays Iowa in the Indianapolis Colts Stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium. There we go. This game's on Fox. there's not a lot to talk about in this game, Maddie. Iowa
Oh
might be the
no,
worst 10-2 team of all time.
there's fun stuff to talk about. Do you know Iowa's point total each half?
It's 0.5, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Iowa's point total for each half, the first and the second half, is 0.5. Like, you're betting on if Iowa can even score a point. And that, to me, is hilarious. The fact that we are talking about a title game, a conference title game, and you can bet on them scoring 1 point.
I think that got bet around. I think that there was juice on the under, actually. Let me look this up because I went to go try to find it today on DraftKings Sportsbook because I was like, you know what? I'm going to go bet the over. I'll bet the over for a point. I'll cheer for Iowa to score a point. So I don't think it's 0.5 anymore. It did definitely open at 0.5.
It's like 2.5 maybe. That might
be what it is now because I wanted to just do it for fun. But you're right. We're talking about a 10-2 team, Maddie. Think about this. This is a 10-2 team that is in a conference title game in a Power 5 conference, and we're talking about, will they not get blown out? Will they
blown out?
Will they not get skunked? Is what the conversation we're having. It's like, are they going to just get absolutely blasted by Michigan? Listen, I don't think Michigan needs style points. I think Michigan's in.
This is going to be the shortest game imaginable. If Michigan jumps out to an early lead, Michigan is going to get out of this game as fast as they've had a lot of injuries. JJ McCarthy's been banged up. Their running backs have been banged up throughout. They just lost their best offensive lineman last week against Ohio State, Zinter, to a broken leg. And they've had their offensive tackles have been hurt off and on. Like, this is a team that's gotten beat up down the stretch. So, like, if they get out to an early lead, and as soon as it's to the point where Iowa kind of has to try to throw the ball, Michigan is going to go super slow, run the ball. Like, Michigan wants this game to be 2 hours and 12 minutes long, right? Like, they want to get in and out. So, like, it gets a little dicey when you're dealing with a 22.5 line, right? For this game. Like I said, I picked Michigan. The only thing that gives me pause is if Michigan gets up 14, 17 points, they really do want to sit on it. But like I said, Iowa's going to have to throw then. And I think that might just lead to Michigan taking over the football at the 32-yard line 3 or 4 times in this game. And so, like, I'm taking Michigan laying the points. I think Michigan wants this game over as quick as possible with maybe throwing 8 passes again. They might throw 8 passes all game and just call it a day. Like, I think I would not be surprised.
This game's not going to be a very fun one. So that's why you should go over. I'm taking Michigan as well. That's why you should go over to ABC and watch the Louisville take on Florida State.
Can it be any more fun?
Which, yeah, the night slate's not the best. Which, this game is interesting, Maddie, because Florida State is coming in with Tate Rodemaker, who is coming off of a not great performance in Florida. Like, it was, he won. But it wasn't pretty. This game is in Charlotte, North Carolina on ABC, as I mentioned. Number 14, Louisville at number 4, Florida State. Florida State only favored by 2 points, Matthew.
Yeah, I think it was like a touchdown or something last week. And then people saw what Florida State looked like against Florida. And were like, oh, wait, that team's not any good. And it's crazy that the line got this close after Louisville lost to Kentucky. That's just mind-boggling that Louisville lost and the line closed. Right. I don't know what to do with this game.
No,
it's a backup quarterback playing against a defense that's been relatively good, but I don't trust Louisville. Louisville's played not a lot of good teams. They have lost to Kentucky and the Pittsburgh Panthers in the year 2023. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to believe that they can beat Florida State? Yeah, maybe with the backup quarterback who makes a bunch of mistakes, but Rodemaker played Louisville last year, scored points against them. He came in like half of the game or something, but like he scored some points against them. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game. I think if either team jumps out to a lead, I think things get real dicey. But if it stays close, like I imagine it will with some pretty rough offensive play, I don't really have a great read on how either team really finishes this off with a big drive or really takes control.
Looking at Louisville's last 3 games, Virginia, they beat them 24-31. They beat Miami 38-31. That game was kind of close the whole way.
Yeah.
And then obviously losing to Kentucky 38-31. So they've played, their games have been pretty close as of recently. And they haven't played necessarily the best. It probably all started when they wore those glow-in-the-dark uniforms that, why are you wearing glow-in-the-dark uniforms when the lights will be on the whole time? That doesn't make any sense, buddy. I still can't get over that they did that. But anyhow, I don't think Florida State should lose this game. I really don't. Even with Tate Rodemaker at quarterback, I don't think that they should lose this game because I think that they can heavily rely on Trey Benson. Like, I think it's probably going to have to be a Trey Benson game. We're going to have to see him have like 200 yards is what's going to need to happen if Florida State's going to win this game.
Yeah, but Louisville's defense has been pretty good versus the run, not against as good of a team, right? It's like, it's just, it comes down to me is either offense, I guess, going to make a mistake. Like if either quarterback or offense gives the other opposing team free points or a chance, that I think both defenses are going to be good enough to close it out. It's just, it's hard to me to see either offense executing good enough, consistently enough to give themselves the edge. It'll have to be mistakes by the other team. I think we'll say, both between Norvell and Brom, like they both can scheme open some stuff, right? So Louisville wants to scheme open 2 touchdowns by just getting the ball downfield to thrash against Florida State. And like, do I believe that Tate Rodemaker is going to make the same level of comeback he did against Florida against this Louisville defense that has a good pass rush, that has a good defense? No, I don't think so. But the same thing's on the flip side. Trey Benson hits a big run, or Norvell schemes open a couple wide open big plays for Rodemaker, and Louisville falls behind. Am I trusting Jack Plummer to go down there and make up a 14-point deficit? Absolutely not. So this game, it's so crazy. It sounds silly, but like it could be super close down to the absolute wire, or one team could make a couple mistakes in the first quarter, and that just ends it right there. Because I don't think either offense is going to have enough juice to make up for any gaps that they get if they fall behind.
Is Jake Plummer the best quarterback Florida State's seen all year?
Is Jack Plummer the best quarterback Florida State has seen?
Plummer. Yeah,
well, no, they played Daniels. Jaden Daniels will start the year.
Okay.
Daniels
top 3. You think he's top 3? They played Klubnik. They played Southern Miss.
Oh no, Klubnik's definitely better, and I don't think Klubnik's any good. I don't think Plummer's any good, but I think he's better than that. Even one-legged Riley Leonard for the first half is better than Jack Plummer. I don't think Jack Plummer's any good. I guess I want to be. That's more of where this is coming from. I don't think he's that good. I think Brom does a lot of the heavy lifting there.
Yeah,
that's my stance. Now I look through though. Yeah, they haven't played a lot of good offenses.
It was
really LSU to start the year, and it was like LSU had a okay first half, failed a couple times in the red zone, and then the wheels fell off. But like, you just look at that first half, they were pacing to score like, I don't know, almost 50 on Florida State with some mistakes. So like, yeah, they haven't played a lot of good offenses, and I do think that is noteworthy. So yeah, Brom gets a couple guys open. Maybe this game gets a little dicey, but like, Plummer's not going to beat you by out executing you by himself the entire time.
That's fair. Picks in this one, Maddie, 2 points. Florida State, what are you taking?
I'm taking Louisville because I refuse to root for Florida State to win this game. I refuse. I don't want to see them play. I don't want to see them in the playoff. I just don't. And that stinks because this is a team to start the year I was having a lot of fun with. But like, as soon as Travis went down, I was just like, this team lost all pizzazz for me. I'm going to say Jared Verse looks healthy again. I don't know if he was banged up to start the year, getting used to adding more weight because he clearly got thicker. He was dominant against Florida down the stretch. I think he could have another big game versus Louisville. So, like, he's a fun guy to keep an eye on as a prospect that a lot of people had high hopes for entering the year. Give me Louisville. I can't root for Florida State. I can't. I'm not in this game.
Yeah.
Heart pick.
I guess I'll go with Louisville as well.
They can't.
I'm just not.
I don't want to see him play. I don't want to see Florida State. Okay, out of Oregon, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. That's everybody in contention, right? Which one, and Florida State, which one gets blown out more against Georgia or Michigan? Like, who loses the biggest? It's Florida State, hands down, right?
Yeah.
Like, who wants that? No, just get him out of here. Take care of it, Louisville. Come on, Brom. Never been a bigger fan.
You're the biggest Jack Plummer fan there's ever been to this week.
Oh my God. Jack and Jake Plummer jersey.
Yeah, God. You need all the plumbers. Call the plumbers. Okay, let's start to get into the group of 5 games. We can probably hit these pretty quick. SMU at Tulane. SMU playing well recently. Did just lose their quarterback coming into this game. Tulane, I think they're a legit, really good football team. Tulane only favored by 3 points, so as they're hosting this AAC championship game in the American Athletic Conference, this game is at 3 o'clock Central, 4 p.m. Eastern in New Orleans on ABC. Maddie, thoughts and picks?
Tulane was playing, I think, possum a little bit through the main part of their schedule because they are clearly more talented than everybody else.
Gosh, they're good.
And I mean, like that's my thought. They came out against UTSA, and UTSA made it easy by throwing them the football or dropping it for them a couple times to start the game. But like, it was just clear that Tulane was better. SMU, if Preston Stone, their quarterback, was healthy, maybe could have a little bite. That they have a really good defense. They can keep it close. And with Stone, you think that they might be able to, mount some drives and some momentum. Without him, I have a hard time seeing Tulane drop this. I'm mostly interested to see if Willie Fritz, once he wins another conference title, is willing to say, hey, I'll take your job offer that everybody's trying to give him. Or if he's going to go, you have to wait until after my bowl game, because like that kind of reduces where you can go. But I'm taking Tulane -3. They're better, and no starting QB for SMU.
That's a big one. No starting quarterback for SMU. With the starting quarterback, I think this could have been a really interesting game.
Yeah,
it still might be a pretty close game, but I think like Tulane's like legit good. And I think they're pretty good. Michael Pratt got things going on. Willie Fritz, as you mentioned, is a hot commodity, but he's focused. He's locked in with the boys in LA. So I'm going to take Tulane -3 as well. App State and Troy.
Too. Real quick on this, going forward, what's his name? Tyler Van Dyke just hit the transfer portal. Is he going to reunite with Rhett Lashley in SMU? I mean, Preston Stone should be back next year. That's been the quarterback for SMU. But like Tyler Van Dyke was good. Like that's when everybody was like, "Oh, TVD might slip into the first round." The OC was Rhett Lashley, who's now the head coach at SMU. And TVD could, that would be a call that I would consider making if I were them. It's like they could be feisty next year, especially if they keep a lot of their defensive pieces.
Listen, SMU, they got some momentum too.
Yeah, that's for a different show, but you just had to throw it out there because I saw TVD hit the transfer portal. I'm like, wait, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would make some sense. SMU got some momentum going to the ACC as well in the coming years. Is that next year that they go to the ACC? Year after?
Yeah, for no money.
They're doing it for free. Yeah, that's right.
They're just like, hey, we'll come play you guys. We'll come in there and beat up on those nerds from Cal and Stanford.
Look, they do. They've got some momentum going into the ACC.
I mean, we'll see how that goes. SMU this year, they're at least they're not a bottom 4 team in the ACC this year, right?
No, I mean they're probably beat Wake. They probably beat
better than Virginia. Probably beat Wake, Boston College. Like Boston College got feisty, but I think they're better. Yeah. And like,
they beat Tech.
Who am I missing? Tech got a little feisty. Oh yeah, they probably beat Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech got a little feisty, but yeah, they're probably like they're not entering as a bottom tier team. So like, I get it. I get the move for them even for free. Let's see what they got working down there. I like Rhett Lashley a little bit as a head coach, so I'm interested to see what they got cooking.
It'll be interesting to see. This game is also going to be really interesting to see because App State at Troy. This is in Troy, Alabama. Both of these teams are cooking right now. Like both of these teams come in hot into this game. Again, this is at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. time slot. This one's on ESPN. This is the CUSA, right? Championship game? Sun Belt. God, I'm an
Fun
idiot.
Belt. Don't you?
The Fun Belt.
Besmirch the Fun Belt ever again with that.
How could I do that? This is disrespectful to App State and Troy because I do think this game is going to be really good. Troy favored by 5.5 points at home. Matthew, thoughts on this one?
App State's got to kind of cook it here down the stretch. They were in a pickle in the middle of the year, and the defense turned it around. The offense with Joey Aguilar at the QB spot kind of started beating. They went out there, they beat James Madison. James Madison's big college game day thing, and like, yeah, JMU was a little asleep at first, but they did it. And so this App State offense, I think, has enough juice to challenge a good Troy defense. The problem is Troy's offense this year is better than what they have been in years past. Like, this isn't a team that's just trying to win every game 10-7 and just get out of Dodge. The Troy offense has been solid. So like, I get Troy being a relatively decent favorite for a championship game at 5.5. I'm going to ride with App State for this because I do think they're on fire. I think they got back, Joey Aguilar's been playing good. He got back one of my favorite wide receivers. I don't even know if he's, going to be that good or anything, but I remember watching App State a little bit over the past couple of years, and Christian Horn missed a couple games. He's coming back. He's good for like a highlight catch every game, even if that's his only catch. So it's a fun pick. App State's a fun pick here for me. Troy's probably a better team, but I'm not going to go against the momentum that App State's kind of worked up.
Troy's got a really good defense. Their defense is really good. They are hosting this game. I think I'm going to take App State on the pick, but I think outright I would take Troy to win the game. Like I think this is a close game.
Yeah.
Like I think this is probably a field goal game. So I'll take App State on the pick, but Troy outright. If that makes sense on this one. But I'll listen. That time slot at 3 o'clock time slot. I'm definitely gonna be. You got Georgia Alabama on at the same time. So I mean you
got both these the SMU Tulane game and the App State Cup. Can they not have moved one of them? Like,
come on, 11. Wait, when does Iowa and Michigan play? Couldn't they move one to 7?
There's no group of 5 game at night. Like, but they had 2 Power 5 conference games. Then when they scheduled it, I don't know, man.
Well, there is a group of 5 game at night. Oh wait, no, that's tonight.
Yeah, that's tonight. There isn't one Saturday night. Get to one tonight. What's tonight? What are we watching tonight when Washington and Oregon on the big screen? What's on the little screen tonight?
We are watching New Mexico State versus Liberty, who has had a quiet undefeated season, by the way. A wildly quiet undefeated season. Liberty, the boys are rolling. Jerry Kill's got the boys rolling at New Mexico State. They're coming in. The Aggies are hot. They are hot right now, rolling into Liberty. Number 24, Liberty, by the way. They're up there. And if Tulane loses, they're the at-large team for the New Year's Six, is what it's looking like.
You know who's hotter than those New Mexico State Aggies? The Liberty.
The Liberty Flames.
Right? Flames.
Yeah.
The fighting Jamie Chadwells. This man loses nowhere. All he does is win. All he does is get good QB play wherever he goes. Yeah, they had a super easy schedule, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Liberty had an easy schedule, but like that's kind of what happens when you're going to play in the CUSA. You're not going to play a lot of good teams. You're going to beat them up. You get Caden Salter that comes in there, let him run around, throw the ball. Like, this team's cooking. They're running the advanced triple option, which just means they actually throw the ball from time to time. And like, they're just kind of beating the brakes off everybody, right? If I'm not mistaken, these two teams played early in the year. Liberty won 33-17. Game was never really in doubt. Liberty really hasn't been pushed at all, except for a one random game against Middle Tennessee State in the middle of the year. Everything else they have won pretty comfortably. And like, do I really believe that this is the time that turns around? No. Give me the Flames. Give me Chadwell. This man should have a much better job. I don't know if he's going to take it after just 1 year at Liberty. I mean, this man is set up to destroy CUSA for the next decade if he wants.
Yeah. No Hugh Freeze, no problem for the old Flames. They did not skip a single beat.
Got a better coach, so.
I am a big fan of Diego Pavada at New Mexico State.
Yeah.
I love Jerry Kill and just the way the program operates. I think were they 3-4 or something like that, or maybe I'm thinking of App State at one point in the
App State
season.
was 3-4.
App State was.
Yeah, they went below 500.
Before they go, but New Mexico State did start off not as strong as maybe you would have. So New Mexico State's 10-3. I think that they might have been 500 at one point in the season. When it comes down to all the games. I'm going to look that up here real quick. But they play in the Conference USA. We're able to get some things rolling. They lost to UMass early on. Their other loss was to Hawaii, and they beat Auburn. Those Aggies did. Forgot about that game.
They did do that.
But look, again, they played Middle Tennessee close. Middle Tennessee, hey, Maddie, maybe Middle Tennessee might be pretty good. You know a team that beat Middle Tennessee?
Was it Kansas?
No, I don't think it was
K-State.
No. Oh, yeah, so it was the Missouri Football Tigers beat Middle Tennessee.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah. So, like opponents, if we face Liberty in the bowl game. But anyhow, Maddie, my pick for this game is going to be New Mexico State because So Liberty favored by 10.5 at home. This is in Lynchburg on CBS Sports Network. If you do get that channel, I'm taking New Mexico State just because I like Jerry Kill. That's it. That's the only reason why.
Sidebar this. I saw you talk about it. You don't want Missouri to have to play Tulane. It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, Liberty's worse.
Is Liberty worse? That's what I was
Liberty's
going to ask.
worse.
Is Liberty worse? Because beating Tulane, especially if they come out and beat App State, or not App State, but if they come out and they beat SMU pretty good, everyone's going to remember them for beating USC last year. Their only loss was the backup QB to Ole Miss. Like, they're a good team.
Yep.
Yes, Missouri should win, but there's a little bit of respect. You go and play Liberty from the CUSA. Like, does anyone care if Missouri wins that game? No. But guess what? You got Jamie Chadwell rolling in there with the advanced triple option. That's a tricky game. I'm not saying Missouri wouldn't win. It's just like, that's a matchup. Like, that's a crazy matchup that there's no good from beating Liberty. There's only bad from losing to them. Like, there's a little good for Tulane. So that would be yikes.
Yeah. It kind of cheapens the game because I think Gabe Diarra mentioned this on the podcast. He said, like, it feels like you've played 4 other games bigger than 6, maybe 6 other games bigger than all of your conference games feel a little bit bigger than that New Year's 6 game that you just got given with Liberty. I don't think Mizzou will get the at-large team. Well, I don't think they'll get the Group of 5 team, but we'll see. I think they'll get Penn State in the Cotton Bowl. That's my prediction. That's what I think they'll be. Just
to be different, they're gonna get. I'll say they get the at-large team. I'm just trying to put myself into the bowl makers, like their shoes, and like I'm trying to find the matchup that I think would be the most fun, and I think it might be Missouri versus especially Tulane. Like, that would, I do think there'd be a fun matchup going on. I get, as a fan, we don't necessarily, like, there's not a lot of fun there, but I think that might be the most fun matchup. It's not gonna be Ohio State. Nobody wants to watch Ohio State just throttle Tulane or Liberty. So like, it's just, that's where it gets tricky. So I think Missouri might be a pretty prime candidate for that slot, though. Just my thoughts. No. Last game, Miami of Ohio without Gabbert starting at quarterback. He's injured versus Toledo. Toledo's favored by a touchdown and a hook. I don't have a lot for this game besides the fact that Toledo's always the best team in the MAC, and they don't win as much as they should. Correct. I think this one, because, Gabbert's not playing, and I don't think you take a backup quarterback and beat a more talented team frequently.
Nope, I'm taking the Rockets.
Yeah.
I'm a Rockets homer. They're my MAC team, and they're good, so that does help.
They are. They don't win as much as they should, but they are good. And like, Jason Candle does a good job, but like, again, he doesn't win as much as he should. They have the most money, they have the most talent in the MAC, and then they're not like dominant. I don't know. It's a weird spot. If Gabbert was healthy for Miami of Ohio, I might ride with the Redhawks. But like, the way it is, I'll take Toledo laying the touchdown, the 7.5.
The game's on ESPN, 11 a.m. Tomorrow morning, so you can watch that one on the little screen while you're watching Oklahoma State lose to Texas. So there you go, Maddie. I think we did it.
I think that's it. Oh wait, final thing, real quick, as the sign off. Playoff teams, go. Who are they? Who are the 4 playoff teams for Tuck? These are predictions, not what you want.
Okay. Georgia.
Okay.
Michigan.
Okay.
Florida State, Oregon.
Oh, getting the chalk with the favorites in there. I get it. That makes the easiest. Okay, I'm gonna go almost the polar opposite here.
That's fine.
Michigan, Oregon, Texas, Bama. Let's go. Let's ride. I want the chaos. I think it's in the realm of possibility. I know I'm going out on a limb for this one, but like, I've talked myself into all of this happening. So yeah, give me that. Give me the absolute chaos situation here.
I'm all for it. I love chaos, for the record. I just anticipate it not happening because I think we're going to get geared up for all this and all the favorites are going to win. That just seems to happen in these situations. But Maddie, that's going to do it for this edition of Barely Bowl Eligible, the last I guess not even technically last regular season. This is the conference championship preview. We might do something special for the bowl games. Bowl games will come out on Sunday. We've kicked around some stuff.
Touch on the coaching carousel. We got to touch on some transfer. We got stuff. We got stuff to talk about, folks. So make sure you subscribe to us here. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us live. Appreciate you hanging out after the fact as well. So really do appreciate that. Got to shout out Zach Eisen, Michigan versus Washington, or Mizzou versus Washington for the culture in a bowl game. Would be fun. That would be a fun one. I would enjoy that. I think Washington would sit everybody, but.
Yeah, they probably would. So good win for Mizzou. Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Texas is what Zach chimes in with as well. That would be a good one. I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
I would enjoy. All right, that's going to do it for Barely Bowl Eligible. For Maddie Lane, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will catch you guys next week with more stuff.
We want the chaos.